So, the first thing we're going to have these wonderful people do is introduce themselves and tell you their status. So, you guys go
first. My name's Diane Brown. I'm married to Mark. We've been happily married for 20 plus years, right?
I'm Joe, and this is Allison. We're the Kleibscheidels, and we too are married happily. For 3 years in May.
My name is Lizzie Kovac, and I'm an intern, and I've been single for 23 years.
My name is Kevin. I'm a senior, and I'm also single. My name is Mark Wohlever, and this is Alyssa, Corrova, and we've been engaged for 2 days. So.
All right, so thank you guys. That is your panel for this evening. Get to know them well, because that's them. Panel white lane. All right, so we had a lot of questions coming from you guys, just centered around boundaries in general. That's always, this is going to be me making this noise, isn't it? Yeah, it is. I don't know. I'm going to play the piano for you guys tonight. All right, so to just going to go with the boundaries thing, the first question to get us started off is, can you explain why boundaries are so important in relationships and give examples of the basic boundaries all Christ-centered relationships should have?
First one is don't do that. Boundaries are very important because, no, I think, well, for me, the number of reasons boundaries are important because I struggled and crossed lots of boundaries in purity prior to dating and being engaged to my now wife. And really, for me, the heart behind the boundaries, I'll let somebody else give the specific ones. The heart behind it is, once you bring intimacy in the relationship, it clouds a lot of things. I feel like it makes it a haze. It makes it really hazy, and a lot of your decision making is based upon how you feel about the person and how you're attracted to them physically. And that's a lot of times not in line where you literally are in the relationship. It brings things into the relationship that are just not proper to be there. Things, sexual things that just aren't there. In the long run, it feels loving, but really, and it feels like you're getting closer to the person, but in the long run, it really just makes things a lot more hazy and sets yourself up for conflict or shame or just a general fuzziness in that relationship that you could avoid otherwise.
Anyone else anything to add to that? Why are boundaries so important? And can you give some examples of boundaries that all Christian relationships should have?
One thing that was really helpful for me was people talking about how, like, you want to draw, like, a boundary wherever that, like, let's say you have, like, a field of sand, and it's like, if your line in the sand is, like, one time I had heard people talking about how it's really hard for, specifically guys, to make out with a girl without lusting. And so for me, it was like, well, I don't want to get close to that boundary and, like, accidentally fall over into anything past that would be, like, super detrimental in my mind. And so I want to actually, like, bring the boundary back past that. And so for Joe and I, when we were dating, we decided for us, like, the slippery slope started with kissing. And so we decided that we were going to pull the line back so that we didn't teeter and fall over it and feel really just kind of discouraged and feel hopeless, like, in that, but that we would pull it back. And there was even, I can remember one night where we had decided that we weren't going to kiss anymore, and in a weak moment we did kiss, and it was this moment of, like, feeling really like, oh, we just crossed a boundary, but also feeling like, okay, we crossed the boundary, but, like, it's not like we went like really far and crossed the boundary, but it like also gave us like freedom, like of like we can commit this back to the Lord and like do this. Does that make sense? So.
Another one to follow up with that is, and then another one to follow up with that real quick is, what if I'm having sex with my significant other and I don't want to stop or don't feel like I can stop?
Well, that is a question that was just asked. Well, I think that it's clear. 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 says, this is the will of God. You know, I always want to know, what is the will of God, right? 1 Thessalonians chapter 4 says, for this is the will of God, that you abstain from sexual immorality. There isn't any grayness here. It's a pretty black and white deal. If you're a follower of Christ, God gives us instructions on which we are to follow. And it's not to take all the fun out of life. It's actually to provide and protect you for something even better. And so if you don't have a desire to stop, my question is the godly universe living within you? That would be my first honest question. Because if the godly universe is living within you, then you should feel conviction that that is wrong. So that would be my response. So probably not one that, if you're here, you want to hear from someone. But yeah, if you're having, and it would make sense, if you're having sex, you want to keep doing it. The question is, are you willing to submit to the authority of the Scriptures? And if you're willing to submit to the authority of Scriptures, which I would recommend, then, and it's hard for you, then that's where you need to pull some men into your life, if it's, I mean, I would say the guy, to help you see victory in this. And I personally, I'll say one more thing that you will not like me to say. I would, if I was the girl, well, I'm not going to say this, never mind. Whoever it is, whoever wants to have sex, if I was the other partner, I would have a big concern. If I was a believer. In other words, if I'm a gal and the guy's like, I want to have sex, I love it, I would be concerned, because what that guy's doing is showing you very vividly a lack of self-control. So what's going to make him stop when you get married? If you get married, and there's no even guarantee that you will get married. So so if I was a girl, and if I'm the guy and the girl, the same thing. If I'm a guy and I'm dating this girl and she just loves to have sex, she can't stop, a red flag should be in my mind like, oh my goodness, what makes me think she'll have self-control if we get married in the future? She's showing very clearly she has no self-control. So that would be my quick answer. It's a pretty complicated, probably, the circumstance, but it's pretty black and white if you're a believer, that sexual immorality is out of bounds for a lot of other reasons, but that's the biblical response. Thank you for that question.
All right, so now to backtrack a little bit to pre-relationship times. What do you do, and I'm assuming this is a girl asking, what do you do when a guy asks you out who you don't think you would like? Should you say yes on the first date, or is it leading him on? And then, like, off of that, a separate question, what if the guy is not a believer?
I would say yes, you should go. I think it's just a good opportunity to go and have fun, get to know someone. If he's not asking to be his girlfriend and commit to him for a life, he's just saying, hey, let's go get dinner, let's go to a movie. And that's great. One of my favorite authors, Henry Cloud, says that you shouldn't limit yourself to a type because you never know who you can end up falling for. I'm looking at my notes. As for going on a date with someone who's not a believer, I think that's really tricky. People might give you different answers, but ultimately you're gonna marry someone who you date. And the Bible tells us that we shouldn't be yoked with unbelievers, and so I think I would recommend not. But I don't know if someone else wants to go.
echo that, Lizzie. I think that you would be treading toward dangerous waters if you started something, because emotions can get quickly involved, and attachments, and the idea of missionary dating, dating a non-believer, or hoping, praying, trusting that they might come to Christ one day is it's dangerous, and it could happen, and some of you probably know people, situations where it has happened. But I would caution against that, because there's not a guarantee, and what Lizzie said, I just would not date somebody that you would never marry, because I think the purpose of dating is to, I'm not talking about the group thing. I mean, if it's a group situation, great, but if you're starting to single somebody out, the purpose of dating, I think, is to find someone that you're going to eventually marry.
All right.
Oh, someone else.
Well, I was going to say, originally, when I got these questions, I probably would have said, go for it. Because, if I, just a dating is like going out to dinner, or just it kind of ends there, or that's the end of it. But after talking to a bunch of people, I would change my mind, and I would say that it's just pretty risky. And just, especially if you don't know him, or you don't have any mutual friends, you don't know if he's safe, and so.
Cool. This next question, guys, you want to pay attention, get your pens ready. As a guy, what does it look like to pursue a girl?
Okay, so what does it look like to pursue a girl? There's a lot of things that go into that. I think the first thing, though, is you need to be really clear with where you are kind of every step of the way. If you like a girl and you want to go on a date with her, tell her you want to go on a date with her. Don't ask her to hang out for 4 straight weekends and not really do anything about it. Tell her you want to go on a date. Keep her in the loop with what you're thinking and what you're feeling. So that would probably be the first step. And then the second thing that comes to mind is you just want to be really encouraging every step of the way. You want to enhance and increase her view of God, of men, and of herself along the way. So whatever you do during that time, you want to encourage those 3 things. So no matter what happens, it's going to be a success if you do that.
I would add to that. I was just reflecting recently on 1 Corinthians chapter 13, the love chapter in the Bible. And does anyone know what the first attribute of love is? Love is quick. Oh, it's patience. And I find it very interesting, because when it comes to pursuing and dating, it's always well, you have to go really fast. And I've never heard anyone say, I wish it would have gone faster. I wish that we were more physical. No, most of the times when I'm counseling people, they say, I wish I would have gone slower. And so when a guy's pursuing a girl, I think one of the things that he can do is help pace the emotional depth of the relationship. And probably the biggest error I see in guys pursuing girls, you ready? Is that they find that special someone, and they say, let's go on a date, and they pair off and isolate, and you never see them again. And if someone in here is doing this, I hope this upsets you, because it should. Because when it comes to a future marriage, is that what you want your marriage to be like? Just you and your spouse, and no community? No. We want to have our relationship, as a guy's pursuing a girl, one of the responsibilities I would say is, let's do it, obviously alone, but then with other people. And help kind of create this pace emotionally that's not like every moment you're together, texting every hour on the hour. What are you doing? How are you doing? Is to really pace it and bring people into the relationship, because this is what happens when you do this. When you pair off and isolate, then you start developing a skewed view of this relationship, and you think it's this awesome relationship, but it's only based on your single-minded perspective. And if you're up to yours physically, then it's really south. You have no idea what's going on. So when you bring other people into it, then you can say, and I had one guy take me up on this, one guy. And he graduated as a teacher at King's High School. Anybody from King's High School? Cincinnati? Okay, one person, nobody. But he actually brought his girlfriend over to our house, and we had dinner, and then they left. He called me and said, "What'd you think? What'd you think of her?" And I think that's really wise. Because when it comes to dating relationships, you want to hold your hands open, but oftentimes what I see is you find a girl, she's mine, how dare you, I'm not going to let you say anything about my girlfriend because she's mine, and I'm going, you know, that is so unhealthy. We need to open hands. You know, God is in control of this relationship. If He wants to go beyond friends or beyond casual dating, that's okay, but let's have open hands. And one reflection of that, I'll stop because I'm going off, is bringing other people into the process and not kind of pairing off and isolating.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, just real quick, I was talking to Ryan Berg about the Safari retreat, and he would say, just like, specifically between the guy and the girl relationally, just like, it makes sense, but I don't know, no one ever told me this before, just like, be honest, and like, hey, I'm trying to pursue you, or I want to take you on some dates, like Mark was saying. Just be like, honest, and just like, respect her. I think it's going to be like two things you can really do towards the other individual, like her as a person. I don't know if I'm not getting my input, but I did. Mark, you kind of talked about community, so going off of that, what's it look like to date in community? And then someone specifically asked, what's it look like to date in community in a long-distance relationship? So if you guys want to touch on both of those a little bit.
I mean, we just touched on some of the things of why community is important, but like, I think, going back to what, I think a first step in pursuing a girl is realizing you don't know how to do it. I mean, is there a guy in here who's like, yes, I know how to do it? And then what you do is you ask very specific questions, like, and ask somebody to enter into your life, and take the initiative to be like, hey, we did this last night. Do you think that was a good idea? Like, hey, we've been dating for like 3 weeks. What do you think it would be appropriate to go here and do this? I mean, it's be really specific. I think it's making sure that people know and know what's going on. I would think that holds true if you have the Skype relationship primarily. I think it's making sure people know what you're talking about, where your relationship's going, holding you accountable there, as well as just really, if it is a long distance relationship, making sure people know when you are going to meet up, because that's going to be really significant temptation physically I've found from those scenarios and from people I talk to. So it's just like really, I would just say, be really open and ask multiple people to ask you very specific questions. And do stuff with other people. We wanted to be intentional about not making other people like feel uncomfortable when they're around us. We wanted to like be around my housemates. We wanted to be around, you know, other people and let them feel like we were approachable, we were engaging with other individuals while we were dating.
One thing to piggyback off of that is to really be proactive, like prior to doing things. It's not like, hey, I want to let you know like what happened last night. What do you think? But to take a step ahead and like talk to a few guys or a few girls if you're a woman beforehand and be like, hey, I wrote this note to my girlfriend. Like, we've only been dating for so long. Like, can you read it first and make sure I'm not saying something that I'm gonna regret, or I'm planning on doing this tonight. How does it sound? Am I gonna not want to do this? Just get input beforehand so you don't have to go backwards and unwind. That can save you a lot of turmoil in the future if you go beforehand.
All right, so backtracking a little bit more. There's a lot of people in this room that are single, right? So what does it look like to be a steward of being single?
All right, well, the way I kind of looked at it is, like, you have 24 hours in a day, 7 days a week, so you have limited time. And if you're in a relationship with someone, like, it's your duty to, like, spend time with that person and like, communicate and relate. But if you're not, that time is opened up. So you need to decide, and, like, bring this to God, like, how do you want me to use that time, the extra time that I have, because I'm not in a relationship? And like a great way to do that would be to serve in some way. whether that's like through Cru or like through the church you go to. Like look for a way to serve, to give back while you're still single. Because when you're not, it's going to be a lot harder to. And just like personally, like looking back at my 4 years here, I think if I was in a relationship with somebody for any part of that, I would have not been able to do something. I mean, whether it was like the Bible study I led, the guys I discipled, worship band. And I could not pick which one I would not want to have done. Like I love doing all of those, and I wouldn't give them up. So just kind of like looking from that perspective, like God has you single for a reason. He loves you and he wants you to use that singleness like for his glory. So.
All right, and just what are some, another question we got, what are some things, guys, you look forward